everyone. It's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy and Profitable Play. And it's really hard to believe this, but as I'm sitting here recording, we're almost halfway through May. And I know the phrase is like April showers, but we're getting some May showers right now. So my hair is just crazy. I didn't even really notice how crazy it was until I sat in front of my webcam. And it's also crazy windy today. So if you hear any wind in the background, I'm sorry. I'm really doing my best to soundproof this office, but it's really, really windy today. But I really wanted to get this video out there to you because this is the beginning of the slow open play season for New York, at least. Now, I know in every state and every country, it's going to be a little bit different, but I know in New York, at least, we have been cooped up indoors since like November. And right now, we're just starting to get a taste of like 60, 70-degree days. And we're still attending like indoor birthday parties and classes and things like that. But in terms of just picking an activity for like a random Saturday or a weeknight, nobody's really considering indoor options. That's just reality. So I wanted to create this video to talk about field trips because for us, our space was just not set up to safely accommodate field trips. And I'm going to talk about why. And then I'm going to give you 8 different alternatives and ways that you can still work with groups and schools and daycares without offering field trips during your open play hours. So these tips are going to be helpful whether you are a smaller space like we were, or if your physical space isn't even open yet. I was just chaperoning my son's 2nd grade field trip the other day. We went to the Buffalo Science Museum and it was so fun, but it was just such a hectic day. And it really kind of transported me right back to being an indoor playground owner and getting all of these different field trip requests and doing my best to accommodate all of them and generate that extra revenue during our slow season, while also not scaring away all of our normal regular customers and our members and open play people. So I really wanted to talk through this a little bit and share what worked for us and what didn't work for us. So before we get started with all of the different tips, I want to remind you quickly to subscribe to my channel so you never miss a video. I have some really great videos coming out soon. I know I say that all the time, but I'm traveling in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be doing a really fun collaboration and I just don't want you to miss anything. So subscribe to my channel, turn post notifications on, and then without further ado, I want to get into a couple factors that were really working against our facility, especially our first location in particular, and why we weren't able to safely accommodate field trips during open play hours. Now, the first is definitely our size, right? So we were only 2,500 square feet and our play area was only 1,000 square feet. And even our second location, even though it was 1,000 square foot bigger in total, that was mainly because of our bigger classroom and retail area. So both play areas were just over 1,000 square feet. And that meant that we were only able to accommodate like 20 to 25 kiddos in our play area at any given time. So the actual gated play area, not in our entire facility in general, just inside of that play area. And if we're accommodating a school or a daycare plus our members and open play customers, it gets pretty full and frankly pretty unsafe pretty quickly. And the second thing was that we really catered to little kids, right? Our space was really geared to the 5 and under crowd, and even more specifically, the under 3 crowd, right? 80% of our members had children that were under 3 years old. So if we kept that in mind and we were doing like a field trip for a preschool or something like that, because most of the requests that we got for field trips were from private preschools or church preschools or Montessori-based preschools that were looking for an alternative to like, the science museum or the farm field trips that are really common, at least in our area. So because we were set up to accommodate the smaller kiddos, that meant that all of a sudden we were bringing in all of these school-aged or preschool-aged children when all of our members, who again, 80% of whom had children under 3, were already happily enjoying our facility. So, because of that, it just made it very overwhelming. And we really didn't want to upset our members because, as you know, if you watch this channel, memberships were a huge source of recurring revenue for us. And they were a huge priority in our business. So, the last thing we wanted to do was upset any of our members or create any unsafe circumstances or anything like that and hurt our retention rate, hurt our monthly recurring revenue, and put anyone in an uncomfortable position that they didn't want to be in. So, because of the ages that we accommodated as well, it made it really difficult. And let's say we were to accommodate a field trip or an outing for like a daycare with the smaller kids, right? You'd probably think, well, that's a perfect alternative to offering field trips to preschool or school age kids. But the problem with that, and again, we tried this many different times, the problem with that and the unfortunate reality is that these early childhood centers or daycares, they're often very understaffed. So, in my experience, they often would visit with or they would want to visit with a 4-to-1 child to adult ratio. And when you're dealing with kiddos that are under 3, most of whom are not going to be fully potty trained yet, there is always going to be one of those 4 kiddos that is having a meltdown or needs extra attention or needs a snack or needs a change or needs to use the bathroom. And these younger kiddos take a much longer time in the bathroom because they're a lot less independent and they might be potty training or learning or they might need a diaper change. And that means that those other 3 kiddos are kind of left unsupervised while that adult is tending to one of those children. And again, this is just my personal experience, but having daycares and groups with anything less than like a 2-to-1 child to adult ratio is going to create that huge disruption for your paying open play customers and your members. And we wanted to be very, very sensitive of that. We didn't want to accept, a one-time group rate and then lose all of these memberships that are recurring revenue for us in the future. And of course, we just didn't want anyone to have a bad time. We didn't want to upset, our normal customers that were already in our facility. So we were really sensitive of that. And, I know you can't please everybody, but our members were really, really important to us. Again, as you know, if you watch this channel. And then the third factor that was really working against us in terms of offering field trips safely during open play hours was our lack of a classroom. So our second location fixed this problem. We did have a classroom where we could close the door, we could do arts and crafts and activities and games and kind of keep that field trip or that group apart from the open play customers and still give them a really amazing, engaging experience without creating an unsafe environment. So that was something that we did and we really prioritized in our second location. But for our first location, we didn't have that. All of the field trip or daycare kiddos were intermingled at all times with our paying customers. And again, this just made me uneasy as an owner in terms of safety and not enough guardians. And even if we did, colored t-shirts or wristbands, it just didn't make me feel great. And because a lot of our staff was, teenagers and young adults, I didn't want to put them in an uncomfortable or in an unsafe situation as well. So again, our size, the age that we catered to mainly, and our lack of a classroom really made it impossible for us to safely accommodate field trips during open play hours. So I want to go through 8 quick examples of alternatives where you can still work with groups and schools and daycares without angering any of your open play customers or members and not putting anyone at risk. So the first is afternoons. So after we figured out that May and June were extremely slow for open play, except on days it rains, and that's the other thing that I wanted to mention. I forgot to mention this, but in May and June in New York, and maybe in the area you're in too, the weather is really unpredictable. So we could plan a field trip well in advance and say, we never really get a lot of kids on Tuesdays. Tuesday would be a great day for a field trip. If it happened to rain that day, all of a sudden we would be packed for open play and we would be constantly having to turn people away, including members, which is just something that we really didn't want to do. So the unpredictability of the weather during these field trip months where field trips are most in demand, it just was not going to work for us. So once we figured out that that open play traffic really dipped in May and June, we decided to adjust our open play hours and use afternoons for classes, events, group meetups, and field trips. And we only allow field trips or groups to come in these afternoons, which were non-peak hours, not during our open play hours. So the group could enjoy the entire facility. It would be a little bit more relaxed. It would be contained, right? We can lock the door. We can make sure no one's leaving with the incorrect adult or anything like that. And it just was much easier to handle for the group, for our staff, everybody. So we would typically close around 12:30 or 1. And because our members really preferred the morning slots anyways, this didn't cause a decrease in membership whatsoever for us. So we would close around 12:30 or 1. Again, we would communicate with this with our members and our customers in advance. And we did this for a couple months during that slow season to make sure that we actually survived as a business. And then I would just start reaching out, or eventually I would have my manager reach out to daycares, smaller private preschools, Montessori schools, and say, hey, we have, X, Y, and Z date available at this time for a field trip. Are you interested? Here is our group rate. Now, we didn't have a set group rate because it really depended on the number of kids, the number of adults, if they needed food, if they wanted to do a special activity or a craft or something staff led, or if they just wanted to kind of run and get the wiggles out. So we really, had to figure out what each group needed specifically. So I would typically give them like a range and a list of some potential activities or crafts we could coordinate. And again, this will take some cold outreach. So don't be afraid to do that. Reach out to schools. Again, depending on your size, you might want to go for those smaller private preschools, daycares. But for us, it was much easier to close in the afternoons to offer this. And again, it was a way to generate that field trip group rate revenue and really ease that seasonality that open play traffic brought during the months of May and June. The next idea that I wanted to share was in school play days. So instead of having them come to you, you can offer to come to the school and do a mobile play setup or do an activity or a class or a game. Or maybe you have something that's really popular that you offer on the weekends or something like that. Again, you can reach out to these schools and programs and say, we have this setup. We have, staff members that have this special training. We would love to come and do this activity, or we'd love to participate in your field day or end of the year bash or something like that. Because again, schools often have budgets set aside for these events. And if you're bringing a craft or an activity or a game, that's going to save them time, energy, and honestly, probably money, because otherwise they'd have to coordinate all of that themselves. So even if your physical space isn't quite ready yet, reach out to schools and daycares and ask if you can come set up and participate in their end of year events. The next thing that I wanted to mention is playdate packages. So if you just can't make it work with schools, or if they, require certifications that you don't have or something like that, or if you're just not able to meet them, in the hours that they need, you can consider doing playdate packages for moms groups. So I know in our area we have MOPS, so we have moms of preschoolers. We have baby wearing groups on Facebook. We have breastfeeding groups. We have, moms of Buffalo in our area. Reach out to these group admins and say, hey, we'd love to offer you a discounted group rate. We know indoor play dates aren't quite as popular, but if you want to have the entire space to your group, we'll give you this discounted rate, assuming, let's say 10 or more families book or something like that. We can do an activity, we can provide food if you'd like to. But again, reach out to these admins of these groups and ask if it's something that they're interested in, because oftentimes they will be, at least several times a year. And you can also reach out to any other groups in the area. So we've worked with groups that, attract a certain type of parents. So again, I mentioned breastfeeding, baby wearing. I'm in a lot of groups that are geared towards families of children with autism specifically. There are also groups for families of children with Down syndrome and other disabilities. So reach out to them and say, hey, we'd love to provide a safe, structured space for you guys to mingle and get together. Here's our group rate. They can have people purchase tickets individually at the group rate. So again, even if they have a budget set aside, you can use that budget for an activity or a craft and then still sell tickets so that that organization can afford the event and you're still getting paid the amount you need to make it make business sense for you. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, and sorry, I'm reading off my list to make sure I don't miss anything, is enrichment programs. So similar to kind of bringing a mobile play setup to a school or a program, if you have a background in education or any special training, you can do something specific. So I know my son's school, he goes to a school that's specifically for children who are speech delayed. They have therapy dogs come in, they have occupational therapy groups come in, they have groups come in and do crafts and life skills. So they come and teach them how to like fold clothes and brush their teeth and do things like that. So if you have any of those special trainings or again, an educational background, this one might be especially accessible or attractive to you. And again, this can give you a great working relationship with these schools and daycares and centers before you even open your facility and start generating revenue and building a customer base. You can ask these schools to send a flyer home with all the kiddos so that the parents can see what you offer or join your email list or follow you on Instagram. So again, this is such a win-win scenario for everybody involved. And then the next one we talk about a lot on this channel, but I wanted to mention it anyways. If you really want to still engaged with the older preschools and school age children, you can do educational events again in the afternoons while if you close for open play, on the weekend, on weeknights. You can do science nights with experiments. You can do sensory friendly nights or sensory play or messy play nights or something like that. And you can invite schools, daycares, preschools, anything like that, and reach out to them and say, hey, we're doing this really cool educational event. It looks like it aligns with your curriculum or your play philosophy. Would you mind sharing this? Or did you want to book this event for your school in a private manner? So come in the afternoon or come on a weeknight, invite the parents to attend, something like that. The next thing I wanted to mention is you can partner with other venues. So if there are art studios in the area or science museums or anything like that, ask if you can create a joint program together, or maybe even a music school or a gymnastics gym or something like that, and say, hey, we noticed that you have this really cool event or this class or this camp coming up. We offer this type of play or this type of activity that we notice you're not offering, and we think it could be a great addition. So for example, if an art studio is having a class coming up and it's mostly geared towards families of older kiddos, you can say, if you're requiring families to stay for this event, we'd love to come do a soft play setup for the little ones so that they can play and the parents can focus on completing the activity with their preschooler or older child. So again, another win-win, right? They're going to pay you to come and set up, and they're going to elevate that experience for their customers. I found that it's so much easier to get bookings and business from other businesses than it is necessarily from families or individuals or things like that. So just keep that in mind, because again, they have budgets set aside for this. The next thing I wanted to mention is outdoor activities or game programs. So there are a lot of indoor playgrounds that do like pickleball or something like that. There's one other game that it's escaping me off the top of my head, but I know Cafeo Play offers it. They're from Stowe, Ohio. So they'll actually go to schools and other facilities and facilitate these games. I know Jeremy from Playbound in Chicago, he's actually opening a physical space soon. But in the meantime, he's doing birthday parties, he's doing classes and activities and games at other facilities, generating revenue, growing his customer base, growing his email list, and really establishing his online presence and his business's reputation. So by the time he goes to open his physical space, he's going to have a ton of people ready and excited to book parties, book classes, book events, book memberships, all that stuff. So again, check out Playbound. He's on Instagram. I know he has his website up and coming and his Facebook page, but he's doing a lot of these outdoor games and events. So he's a great example to look at. And then lastly, you can reach out to schools and daycares and preschools and make yourself available as a potential host for a family appreciation night or a kindergarten moving up ceremony or something like that. I know both of my kids went to a private Montessori preschool, and both of them rented out venues or park pavilions or something similar to have a end of year moving up celebration for the kids that were going to be starting kindergarten in the next year. So make sure all of those schools in your area know that you're available to either be a potential venue if they're looking for an indoor option, or ask if you can do a mobile setup or a class, or set up an inflatable or a soft play setup or something similar at their event. Because again, they have budgets set aside for this. And it doesn't have to just be schools or daycares or something like that. It could be a pediatrician's office, or it could be a pediatric dentist office, or even real estate agents or financial advisors. A lot of times, any local business that serves families with young children, they're going to want to get their customers together. They're going to want to do presentations for them. They're going to want to have open houses. And if they don't have physical spaces that are set up for little kids or for large groups, offer yourself as a potential host. Say, we could, supervise the kids and do this craft while you do this, life insurance presentation. Or if you give a seller seminar about how to get your house ready for a sale, or how to win in, a multi offer scenario, if people are really struggling to find a house in this crazy real estate market. So think outside the box here, and yes, reach out to all the different daycares and preschools and places like that you can, but also open your mind to any local business that serves families that might have a reason to get their customers together, whether it's to make more sales or get more customers, or just show appreciation and have, a mingling activity for their current customers. So for example, we actually used to work with a real estate firm. They're called the Friend Team from Rochester, New York. And they would often have just get-togethers with all of their customers. And they would rent out our facility. They would purchase food. They would purchase add-ons. We would do, some themed balloons and decorations. And they'd be able to have a lot of face time with their current and potential clients. And it would be just a great chance to get positive publicity for them, show appreciation for their customers. And also, it was a great way for us to generate revenue during that slow season. So I hope this video just kind of got your wheels turning and gave you some ideas on how to generate revenue during the slow open play season, because I know that it can be so difficult, especially if you're in a smaller space like ours was, that just isn't set up to safely accommodate field trips during open play hours. So if I missed anything, if you have anything to add or any other ideas, or if you have a question you'd like me to answer or a topic you'd like me to cover, please feel free to comment and let me know. All my courses, resources, consulting, freebies, free classes, they're all linked in the video description. And again, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a video. All right, see you soon, guys.